IVM.
Oh my, episode 99 of the Absolutely Right podcast. I still can't believe it. 50 interesting weeks of the podcast in possibly the most dramatic period of our lives. In innumerable ways by now, I have spoken about how crucial it is for you to discover yourself, know your personality. I've spoken about how you can discover the deeper, unseen, unheard, and at times even unknown aspects of your own personality through your handwriting. Today, as a special gift, I thought of compiling a list of 9 things that you must know about yourself looking at your writing, and I have combined them with some of my favorite questions, moments, and memories from the 98 episodes that we have recorded so far. So before we get there and start listening to different guests and the snippets of their conversations, let me welcome you to the show. Welcome to Absolutely Right, the very first graphology-based podcast show in India. I am your host Aditi Surana. I am a graphologist and a high performance coach. I am passionate about, perpetually in love with, and a lifelong student of this fascinating subject called graphology or handwriting analysis. I don't think I've ever told you the story of how all of this started in my life. I remember I was 14 years old and I was sent to a personality development course. You know how they used to send every child back in the day to get groomed and cultured in whichever way. The teacher looked at this class full of teenagers who were clueless and awkward. She decided to start with a game. She asked us a simple question: how many zeros can you draw in a minute? How many zeros? Why would we draw zeros? We all thought. Because she insisted, we all came up with some number. She said, write whatever number came to your mind on a paper and then timed us as we set out to make as many zeros as possible in that given minute. It was a simple capacity gazing game. Some people knew their capacity of drawing zeros, some overestimated themselves, and others underestimated themselves. She had made her point and she moved on. Yahan aaya kahani mein twist. During the break, I looked at some students' papers and their zeros and was intrigued by how each person drew their zeros in their own styles. The size, the shape, the spacing, even the way they used the paper was unique. Unknowingly, I started tracking some inexplicable patterns in those scribbles. My dyslexic brain was acting up in a manner that I had never known before. Next thing I knew, I picked up some random papers and started describing people's behavior looking at those zeros. Obviously, the analysis was not like what we hear on our Wednesday episodes. It was more instinctive, raw, and natural. But we all were surprised. I had no clue how I was talking about their personality in an accurate manner. But in that moment, I knew one thing for sure. I knew that my life is about to change. In no time, my curiosity became my passion. I started gathering books and materials to support my so-called research. I was brought up in a house full of books. My communist South Indian father was an avid reader. And in my family, no one ever stopped anyone from buying books. I quickly gathered my stock of books related to psychology. By 18, I had completed some local course in graphology and wanted to explore it professionally. My dad was delighted to see me take interest in a new subject, but he never thought I would even think of making this as my profession. He brought my sister and me with some real revolutionary, non-conformist ideas. He always equated that all training to turning us into activists, politically active citizens, or at least government employees in administrative services. He never thought that this so-called revolution would start from home by me not agreeing with his plan. In April 2004, my dad and I happened to discuss my career options. I told him that I was considering taking up graphology seriously. What do you mean? He was shocked. I said, I really think I have a knack for it and I would like to do some international certifications in this subject. He could not believe his ears. He was angry, upset, disappointed, all in that very moment. The conversation turned into an argument. I was surprised at myself. I did not back off. I really wanted to do this. To give it to him, I was 18 and a half. I'm sure he looked at my craze for graphology as some random, fleeting teenage obsession. But at the end of the day, probably without any intent to act on it, maybe just to pressurize me, or probably under the influence of all the high drama Bollywood parenting techniques that he must have learned, he uttered those irretrievable words. You're free to leave my home if you do not agree with my choices. And we both were really, really shocked. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to react to that. I didn't see this coming. But in his own ways, exactly what every melodramatic stereotypical father from Bollywood movies would have said in at least half dozen ways, my father said, Nikal jao is ghar se. Your personality is your filter. We do not look at the world for what it is. Of course not. Every experience goes through multiple interpretations, opinions, judgments. There is the truth and there is your version of the truth. Every piece of information, emotional, logical, social, or any other form, has to go through these filters. To give you an example, imagine you're wearing red tinted glasses and looking at a white wall. No matter how white that wall is, for you, the wall is pink, peach, rose, or any other color but white. What you think, right or wrong, good or bad, healthy, unhealthy, moral, immoral, everything is based on these filters. Filters that are yours, filters that are given to you culturally, socially, in the family that you're brought up. But basically, we look at the world through these filters called personality. I believe it's high time that we go beyond our fixed ideas, beyond these fixed filters. Today, allow me to walk you through 9 such factors of personality that play an important role in the way you look at your work, your personal and professional life, and success in general. With each point, I will be picking parts of different conversations from our previous episodes for you so that you can relate to the point better. Then I will come up with a graphological explanation and give you a handwriting stroke that you can find in your own handwriting. When I meet people in a session, I find them confused about some common things. They wonder who they are, how they function, why they're triggered on the same things over and over again. So, when we look at these common, simple personality confusions, we'll be able to really discover newer nuances of you as a person. And let's also find out if graphology can come to our rescue for sure. Point number 1. Are you a firm person or a stubborn person? Many times, people, when they're clear and firm about their choices, they're wrongly labeled as stubborn or ziddi. I think my father also thought the same way about me. And when stubborn people really exercise their authority, they are considered as egoistic. Are you stubborn or you're firm? What is the line? What is the difference? On episode number 7, our restaurateur and podcaster guest, Gauri Devidayal, asked me the same question.
When I look back at sort of the last 9 or 10 years, I think there are times when this sense of wanting a strong conviction about something, the flip side is that you also have to be very open-minded about other people's opinions. And sometimes it's hard to be that if you're so convinced by your own logic. And I think that one thing I've realized is that while I may be convinced, I've also realized to be a little more open-minded about, a different point of view, because I'm not sort of, yes, I am seen as the face of the brand and, but my husband's Jay is as much a part of the business as me, and he is a completely different person. And a lot of what has happened is because of decisions that we fought crazily over, and somehow he's, sort of either convinced me or I've decided unconvinced to sort of go with him. But now I've learned over time that, I may not necessarily see the rational sort of reason for doing something, but there's, I want to sort of believe that someone
has the reasoning required.
That I may not see at the time, but, will sort of play itself out.
I always speak about this. People think firmness and being stubborn are the same things, and they're not. Like, you're very firm, but you're not stubborn.
I think I've evolved that sort of from being stubborn to being sort of firm, because it doesn't work. It's not sort of my way or the highway.
Yeah, and stubbornness has a lot more ego into it. It requires you as a preference-driven person, whereas firmness is about what is required to be done. Yeah. And you are like very what is required to be done, at least now for sure.
As I said it in the clip, being firm is about the decision, the project at hand, about doing the thing in the most appropriate manner. However, being stubborn is about you doing things your way, only because you're saying it. In short, my way or highway. Graphologically speaking, we can spot stubbornness in the lowercase letter d. D for difficult. Yeah, that's a good correlation. So look at the lowercase d. The letter D is designed with a small A-like formation, and then the line goes up to create a vertical line, and the same line comes down to complete the D formation. Now here is a point to look for. If you find a wide gap at the bottom between two vertical lines, then the writer is a stubborn person. Wider the gap, more is the stubbornness. Point number 2. I hear people say this often. Oh my God, I'm experiencing FOMO. FOMO. Yeah, we use it very casually as part of our language. What do we mean by that? We look at someone's Instagram profile. We wish we had their beautiful, fancy, adventurous, cool looking life. Not necessarily all of that is true, but at least it appears to be. In that moment, because we are stuck somewhere, we experience FOMO. Social media entrepreneur Malini Agarwal of MissMalini.com often says, I'm in this business of social media and being an influencer because I need to know it all. If I don't know things about people, then I may experience FOMO. Graphologically speaking, we can spot FOMO in the letter M, upper or lowercase. M for missing out. Yeah, good correlation again. If the second hump in the letter M is taller than the first one, then the writer has this constant need to be accepted, approved, liked, or even desired. Now the question is, do you think Miss Malini has FOMO in her personality, or it was just her catchline? Check it out for yourself in this snippet of episode number 37.
You always spoke about fear of missing out. And my first thing was like, okay, let me go and check this in Malini's handwriting. Does she really have this fear of missing out? And I must say this, you are a curious person, and you cannot stop yourself from exploring things that you are interested in. But it's not fear. It's not fear of missing out. It's a term that we can use, but you're not really concerned if you miss on things that are happening out there. And I'm saying that also in your personal life, like if you make mistakes, if you you never thought you should, you take out time and process it very differently. And people look at you and they think she's outgoing and she's expressive and she's all of that, but they do not know the other side of you where you can really put your thoughts together, really become calm and composed and not speak with anybody for hours. So I thought that was really
I'm so curious to know how do you see that in somebody's handwriting?
So handwriting has the overall study is based on multiple strokes coming together. So It's like there are 800 traits, and the combination and permutation actually creates a personality. So when I look at your social skills, I check out, okay, what exactly do you do in your social skills? Are you a person who would go out there? Are you operating from the genuine fear of missing out, or fear of being rejected, or feeling self-conscious? And none of that is applicable to you. And that's why in areas where you had to take a stand and disagree with people who were so-called the significant people of the community, you did. You probably didn't confront them, but you did disagree. You took a stand and you really moved away from it, paying the cost. No one talks about it because I'm sure you do not talk about it and people are not aware of it. But you definitely have that trait where if you believe in something, you do not comply, you do not compromise.
Point number 3. Do you really, genuinely believe in yourself? There is no one who completely believes in or completely doubts oneself. But we all have predominated patterns. Now, when I say believing in yourself, I'm referring to self-esteem. I'm not talking about self-confidence, that is the projected image that you show to the world. I'm actually referring to self-esteem, which is your personal, private conversation with yourself. It is about how you look at yourself when you look into the mirror each morning. Do you know this? It does matter what people say about you. But when you say the same thing about yourself, then the impact of that same damn sentence goes up by 100 to 500 times. In episode number 35, we invited a media entrepreneur and founder of a PR company, The Other Circle, Akanksha Gupta. When I looked at her handwriting, I saw one pronounced thing, her high self-esteem. Many people think that you can feel good about yourself when you succeed or when you do not fail at doing something. However, in reality, it is quite the opposite. People with high self-esteem are willing to fall, fail, and get up again. Success or failure does not define them, so they do not feel horrible about themselves when they cannot do something. Before I talk about what denotes high self-esteem in our handwriting, let's hear how Akanksha describes her process.
One is actually put forth by a lady called Vanshika Goenka, who runs a community called Full Kanya. It says, fail forward and fail fast. So the learning curve is better. You're tackling it headstrong. So that's the learning I've had with her. That's actually become one of the pillar and the cornerstones of our company. So we look forward to failing forward and failing fast. The second bit is, I think, we don't take anything too seriously, ourselves together and included. That's very important because, again, in my profession, you become so obsessed with who you are or how you're perceived beyond a point. Right. Because that's what you do day and night for a living. Exactly. That you you try and hold on to it really tight. But it's like sand, it's going to fall through the cracks. So don't hold anything too seriously, including your own self. I think that's...
Especially your own self.
And lastly is, I think the minute you're willing to learn, everything sorts itself out. So I think for me, the minute you put yourself as a student in any situation, even the most uncomfortable ones, I think that's just managed to keep it all together for me. So it takes a little bit of the pressure off. It requires you not to know everything. It allows you to, again, make a few mistakes because you're a student and you're bound to do that. And I think as long as you keep that at the cornerstone, actually the center of everything, it works itself out again.
So it's so nice, it's all about, when you say failing forward, learning, and, being willing to really put yourself through this process, all of it comes down to fundamentally going back to what you began the conversation with, where if I want to learn, if I want to grow, if I want to build this other circle, then I want to make sure that I do everything it takes and I don't have me or anyone else or anything else standing in the way. And that's
absolutely. So amazing. I'm as indispensable as anything else. The cause is bigger.
So nice.
Graphologically speaking, we can find a great deal of information in the letter T about self-esteem. No, this is not the only sign, but it is a significant one. Letter T for tenacity. Yeah, that makes sense. There are two parts to this letter, a vertical line and a horizontal line. Look at it carefully. If the horizontal line is placed at the top or closer to the top, then it shows that the writer genuinely believes in himself. He or she has high self-esteem. Point number 4. Extrovert, introvert, or ambivert? Do you know what is your style of dealing not only with communication, but with expressing your genuine, deep feelings and emotions? Some of my training is based on Carl Jung's work. Carl Jung is known as the father of modern psychology. He was the one who coined these terms, extrovert and introvert, actually in a style of introvert and extrovert back in the day. He said, it is not about being talkative or being shy. It has nothing to do with how you speak. But these terms are actually about how do you recharge yourself. Extroverts feel charged up in the company of others, whereas introverts come alive when they get to spend time by themselves or their close, trusted circle of people. A young 4-time world record holder pilot Arohi Pandit was our guest on episode number 31. Here is how I described her extrovert and introvert behavior.
So the most important thing about your personality is the way people look at you. They think you are an extrovert. You can talk and you can, actually hold conversations. When you speak in public, you come across as a confident person. But very rarely and only close people would know that you are an introvert.
That is true.
You really need a lot of time to recover from any social interaction. So I believe after today's conversation, you're going to spend like one day by yourself and not talk to anybody pretty much. But that is how you recover from the toxins of talking to people. And I'm using this word because mostly as a listener, people, if you have introverts around, people struggle to connect with them. People struggle to understand why these people are like lost, why they're not connecting, why they're not talking. But this is how introverts function. They love talking only when they connect. Otherwise, they try to avoid it as much as they can.
Wow, you're amazing. See, let me start with you. Like, not many people know that thing about me. But yeah, that's so good. Yeah. It is actually true, yeah. Like, only my close ones know what I really am, but not everyone.
Yeah, and you take a lot of time to open up to people and make friends.
Yeah.
So, you play these very small games. I call them mental teasers, where you keep analyzing people on the games and the teaser and the quizzes that you give, and depending on how they fare in that game, you have the mental scorecard or so, like some kind of sheet going on, and they're like, okay, this person is trustworthy enough, I can open up. And after all the testing, I think you have managed to get 2 people like that you totally trust and can talk to, if
probably,
at all.
Yeah, like probably 1 or 2.
I was counting, like, somebody when you were a child and 1 friend there and 1 friend now. So, like, 2, but yeah.
Yeah, I have, like, 3 friends who I know, like, for 12 years, and that's it.
And it took, like, 12 years before that to know them?
Yeah. Yeah.
In handwriting analysis, we look at slants to comment about this aspect of your behavior. Look at the tall lowercase letters like L, B, H, D. If most of these tall lines are tilted towards the left side, then it indicates that you are an introvert. However, if these lines are leaning towards the right side, then it shows that you are an extrovert. If you go both the sides, then it can be a sign of ambivert. Point number 5. Are you a positive person or a negative person? Also, one more thing. Are you an optimistic person or a pessimistic person? I get this a lot, especially when I meet people socially. Oh, graphology. Yeah, I know graphology. If your handwriting goes up, then you're a positive person. If it goes down, then you're a negative person. I am more than 1200 handwriting samples old in this profession. I have never met a positive person or a negative person. I mean it. There are people with some really pleasant traits in their personality and others with really complicated traits in their behavior. But nobody is fully positive or fully negative. Let's look at a graphology factor that is found in the baseline. What is baseline, you ask? It is that imaginary line on which you write when you're writing on an unruled paper. When you're signing a check, or when you're writing a note or an application on a blank photocopy printout paper, you see your writing going all over the place. That line, that imaginary unstable line, is called baseline. If that baseline goes upwards, it is not a positive sign. It is a mere sign of enthusiasm, excitement, and having bundle of physical, emotional energy. If the baseline is going downwards, then it is a sign of feeling disappointed, feeling low physically, emotionally, and otherwise. If that line goes up and down all around, then it shows that you're confused and you're struggling to make up your mind in multiple areas of your life. Before the lockdown, as a society, we never saw any merit in introvert people. Suddenly, in this lockdown, it became a superpower. So if you are an introvert or dealing with one, for example, if your mother, your child, your spouse is an introvert, then check out one of my favorite episodes called Survival Guide for Introverts. It's episode number 8. Point number 6. As a high-performance coach, I have been studying leaders, entrepreneurs, celebrities, professional players to understand how they process information. How is it different from others? How they make decisions, deal with stress, plan and execute things. In the business and corporate world, we speak so much about efficiency, strategizing, being a taskmaster. We consider certain behaviors as superior leadership qualities. Let's look at some handwriting stroke that can depict good planning and execution skills. Look for lowercase letter f. F for fulfill or finish the task. You got my point. Now, this trait is applicable only if your letter F is written in a cursive style. So each cursive F must have 2 loops. Technically, you may or may not have it depending on the trait that I'm about to describe. So take your letter F and zoom in. Look at it carefully. If the top loop is complete and well formed, then the writer is good with his or her planning skills. If the bottom loop is complete and well formed, then the writer is good with his execution skills. Any deformity or any incomplete loop formation shows that the writer lacks the expertise to plan or execute. I found this stroke in Star Sports executive producer, poet, and podcaster Ragini Kumar's handwriting. This was episode number 93. Here is a short clip.
It's a universal thing, I feel, with us. I get confused when I have to take a decision sometimes. Maybe not professionally, as you said, but, for myself.
When you write your letter F, you make both the loops complete most of the time, but sometimes the lower loop is more prominent. Okay. When we look at F letter like that, where the only lower loop is more prominent, that talks about somebody's ability to execute to the T. And it's only like when you make a plan, some people are great at planning. In your case, if people give you a plan and if you are supposed to execute it, you will make sure that you follow all the timelines, you get all the moving, ducks in a row. You'll somehow manage it. You'll sit on top of it and you'll figure it out. And that is your skill that professionally people have counted on, people can really, really connect to, and that makes you extremely reliable.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Point number 7. Another area where successful people thrive is their ability to remain objective and analytical in any given situation. In the middle of a chaotic, dramatic, or even hysterical moment, they do not lose their objectivity easily. On top of that, they manage to analyze and decipher the best way forward. I found such a stroke when I analyzed the managing editor of LinkedIn News, Ankit Vengurlekar, on our Absolutely Right podcast number 85. Here is a short excerpt from our conversation. So when we look at the analytical nature, okay, let me talk about that. When people write with angular formation, which means when you connect your letters, one letter to another, or sometimes when you write your letter M's, there are pointed angular formations there. They clearly talk about your need to analyze information. You're highly observant, and wherever you get into a space, you keep looking for small cues, for those, moments where people miss on things, but you read between the lines almost all the time. You do not even know that you're observing these things until somebody would ask you a question. Ankit, what do you think about it? And the very moment they ask you that question, you bring in almost like data files from 15 different sources. And then you talk about, say, that person, that activity, that situation. But it happens. So the analysis, it's a way you think, it's the way you process information, it's how you look at the world. And thereby the processing is happening naturally at the back of your mind. So it's not that you're judgmental. It's not that you're consciously looking at things. You might be browsing through internet or a newspaper maybe, but the way you process information, that is your style. Now, why am I talking about it is because so many times people think analytical thinking is what one should cultivate, and it's a good thing or a bad thing. Now, it's not about that. It's literally how you are gifted with certain ways of, all of us have our natural ways of going about. In your case, this is your natural thing. And tell us more how it has actually translated itself in your work or your personal life.
Well, in work, I can definitely connect the dots or read between the lines, as you said. Being a journalist is all about literally connecting the dots. And maybe sometimes a story is hidden in plain sight, but you're looking in the other direction. And so you miss out on these details. So I think I've been lucky, or I've been fortunate that I can naturally use my natural disposition of analytical thinking for better storytelling or for better journalism. And is this common or is it not? Because I do find myself at a loss of words sometimes where I'm like, this is so easy. How did this not occur to you? I mean, what are you thinking? Are you not paying attention? You know what I'm saying?
It's nothing to do with attention. Even when people pay attention, they do not have the analytical bend of mind. And this is where things become different. I'll give you the hindsight of the same trait. When you deal with emotions, especially other people's emotions, you bring in a lot of logic and analytical thinking. And you do that even to yourself. You're like if you feel something, you probably write it down. You try to bring in logic there. You say, okay, I felt this is a trajectory of my thoughts, and let me just, evaluate it. And people are like, no, they're emotions. You can't be evaluating it. And
what is up with that statement? I'm like, okay, problem, solution, ways to get to the solution, point A to point B, locomotion. And And in personal life, it's especially like, no, this is an emotional situation and it doesn't need your logic or your analysis. But I'm like, sure, but you just articulated what seems like a problem. And to my mind, there's a solution to a problem. So very logical journey, right?
Or there should be one.
Apparently not.
Point number 8, learnability. Oh, this one quality I've found in more than 95% of high performers I have studied. You may say, what's the big deal about it? We all learn things, and when time comes, when we are stuck in a situation, we adapt and mold ourselves. I hear you. But when it comes to learnability, I'm trying to talk about someone's voluntary choice of improving or upgrading themselves or the situation at hand. And to talk about this stroke, I must confess, I couldn't have found a better person to talk about this trait than podcaster habit coach Ashton Doctor.
When you learn something, I find learnability is kind of it's not something people enjoy a lot. People want to learn things that they are again comfortable with, and then they want to learn for people outside. So they want to learn something so that social media would like it, my family would like it, my friends would find it cool. When you learn something, you do a lot of questioning, and that's uncomfortable in how. Like very few people I have met who would go through that length of questioning. So when you question something, like I feel people miss this part. The most important part of learning something new is unlearning, which means throwing whatever is working for you out of the window and then objectively, going back to your objectivity perspective, picking something that would work for you in the future. And with that thing in mind, it's commendable because not everybody have that courage to look at things which are working for them.
Or just say, I don't know.
I don't know when you truly don't know. I'm saying imagine something is working for you. A regime is working for you. A skill that is working for you. Throwing that out of the window, I think that is difficult for most of us.
Correct.
We don't want to do that. We are like, okay, this 30% I have figured out. I don't want to question that. Let me go and question the 70%. But you're like, no. Why not that 30%? And I can imagine how difficult it is for people around you to look at that. They're like, no, but we said this process. We were okay with it. Why are we going back and looking at that? Didn't we agree with it? So many times people love your rigor to question things in your own life. They don't like it when it comes to overall as a group, as a team.
Other people.
Yes, because, all of us want to have comfort zone in our lives and other people's, in our relationships. So people want to put us into different boxes. If you keep moving from one box to another, people are like, no, but I put you into that box. Why are you changing? Because for them, they have to reevaluate everything.
Yeah. So. In fact, it's so funny because people who know me know that I am not the same person every year.
Yeah.
Right? And they keep telling me about this, but and I was like, but why should I be the same person I was every year? There's so many experiences that you learn.
And I think we do that to people for our own comfort. Like most misunderstandings that people talk about, even in relationships, is when the spouse is changing beyond their capacity to deal with it. The team member or the boss is changing beyond their ability to adapt to that behavior. And I think this is where we need to take a pause and question. Like if we really trust in people around us and if they're changing, are we really willing to be the recipient of the change? And I think you make sure everybody is on that coaching program all the time.
Be fluid.
That's the only way to be around you. No? If they're not fluid, you're like, okay, I don't know how to deal with you guys. I'm going to be fluid any which ways.
Correct.
The graphology stroke for learnability is a combination of two letters, T and H. Look at these letters next to each other in words like the, other, gather. Basically anywhere when you see T and H standing next to each other. And now zoom in. If the letter H is taller than the letter T, then the writer is willing to learn, unlearn, and evolve. Point number 9. The last trait of the series that indicates success, leadership quality, or even empathetic skill is one of my favorites. It's called the listening skill E. To my mind, listening to someone is not artificially making steady eye contact, nodding at a pre-programmed regular interval, or not even saying the correct things when time is ready. It boils down to genuinely, wholeheartedly being interested in the other person, in his or her story, paying attention to details, comes naturally if you know that you have a keen interest in that person. For me, listening is a privilege. It is an immersive experience. It is the ability to receive the other person completely for who he or she is. When you listen, you don't have to agree, you do not have to disagree. You're supposed to create a calm, neutral, non-judgmental space for the other person. Graphologically speaking, listening skill can be found in the lowercase letter E. E for ear, elephant, earphone. Look for the lowercase e. If the not in the E, that beginning stroke, that little loop there, if that is open and rounded, then the writer is not only a good listener, but also an observant person. He or she is dedicated to listen to their friends and family member. They would put their hearts into ears when it comes to actually being there to support the other person. So if you were listening intently, then some of you must be wondering what happened to my story. Did I really leave my house that day or not? To complete the story, yes, I did leave my house that day. I had no clue how I would support my education, where would I stay, how would I build a career in graphology without any support. But I must say, I learned from each person on the way, through one conversation at a time. My dad did not speak with me for 6 years after that day. After much persuasion, he finally decided to visit my office on its opening day, which was like a big deal for me, you can imagine. With all due respect, it was his training and upbringing that allowed me to be resilient on the path. But not being able to be with him, spend time with him, was probably the cost I had to pay to follow my heart. And in so many ways, I wish I would have known the tools and methods and ways to communicate and understand the other person. All the tools that I keep talking about on the podcast when I was 18. Probably our journeys would have been different and probably less difficult. And when you have paid such a high price to get what you really want, you want to be completely involved with it. Probably that's the reason with each single person I analyze on a podcast or in my session, I am really, really committed to give my best shot. And also it's like reading a book. Just witnessing someone's inner world is a transformative experience. Indirectly, you start understanding and accepting yourself in ways that you cannot imagine. We generally do that when we read a book or when we watch a movie. Handwriting analysis is a live wire experience. You feel that in the moment and you feel understood, you feel accepted, and more importantly, you embrace all the imperfection in the other person and in yourself. In the last 98 episodes, we have tried our best to handpick guests from different walks of life so that you see the variety of people and different perspectives. The idea was simple, for you to embrace yourself and actually accept the people you live and work with. Thank you so much for being part of this transformational, wonderful, difficult, challenging, unbelievable journey on the Absolutely Right podcast. And to each one of you, I cannot thank you enough. Send me all your questions, comments, and doubts on my email ID, WRIT at aditisurana.com. I would do my best to answer your questions to best of my ability. With the next episode, we will be completing our 100-episode journey of season 1 of the Absolutely Right podcast. Through that, we will go through some changes, format changes more than anything else. I'll keep you posted. We'll give you all the information in the next episode. If you would like to know more about personalities, people, signatures, and graphology, then do visit my website, aditisurana.com. And if you wish to learn graphology yourself and join the club of Mad Hatters with my Graphology Masterclass, the next batches are starting on 6th of March and 3rd of April 2021. Actually, new batches start every first Saturday of every month. If you like this podcast, then do not forget to check out other interesting podcasts on IVM Network. You can listen to us on IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Let's connect on Friday on our 100th episode. I will be talking about gratitude journaling. Till then, happy writing!
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. let me quickly thank our sponsors on the network this week. Storytel, TheWholeTruthFoods.com, and we have a new sponsor in Syed. Thank you all so much for being part of the network. So, this is Valentine's week, and we have a bunch of stuff for you guys. So I'm going to give you a couple of episodes that you could definitely catch up with. Agla Station, Season 2, Episode 12, Be Our Valentine. Ritasha and Ayushi have a little bit of talk about love and all the rest of the stuff that goes wrong with that. On The Habit Coach, episode 396, Ashton Doctor did an episode which went into the much-debated origins of Valentine's Day. Also, do check out Candid Kannan with Siddharth Kannan featuring Govinda and his wife Sunita Ahuja. He talks to them about amazing 33 years together. But you know what, folks? If you want to hear more about these Valentine's Day things, what I suggest is go to our webpage, ivmpodcast.com/blog. And on the blog, we're going to post a bunch of different playlists that we've created for all the various major services. So if you're feeling in the mood for love, do check that out. You'll definitely enjoy it. Just a quick note on a few other noteworthy episodes this week. Nankari, Kunal Vijayakar was the guest. They spoke about street food with him. On Simplified, they talk about vaccinating 1 billion people, then the logistical and administrative task in front of us. And on the Wire Talk, Siddharth talks to Devdutt Mukhopadhyay about the human cost of internet shutdowns. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Hey, I'm Zarina, your peak performance coach, leadership coach, and life coach. And I'm here to unleash that power within you with your weekly dose of mantras and empowerment. Tune in to Monday Mantras every Monday for your quick fix and the Empowering Series with Zarina Poonawalla every Thursday for riveting real-life stories. You can catch us on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcasts from.